New York-based artist Gary Simmons created his first public project in Detroit. The exhibit is a contemporary work focusing on various musical styles. The art installation is on display at 1301 Broadway in downtown Detroit. Take a look.
For me, Detroit was always a very important place for this project. So in this case, I really was interested in having a site that sort of represented both the past and the future. And I think that it's important that I was accentuating the architecture, not camouflaging the building. You know, in a lot of the installations that I'm invited to do, they're in the white box, they're in the gallery, they're in the museum, where the specifics are already mapped out for you. And in here, the challenge is how do I immerse the experience of the viewer? I think art has a great sense of power in that way. I think that just the way that I've been able to have different kinds of conversations and exchanges with people in and around the city, and you know, they're curious about what you're trying to do, and I think that art has a way of drawing different kinds of attention into a space in this particular case. And for me, it's about creating a space between representation and abstraction. It becomes a personal, but it's a collective experience at the same time.
My next guests were instrumental in bringing Gary Simmons' public work here to Detroit. I'm pleased to have Jane Schulak, founder of Culture Lab Detroit, and Bryan Waldron of Bedrock here today. Welcome to American Black Journal, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk about the idea to bring Gary Simmons from New York to Detroit to share his art with us.
From LA.
From LA.
From
well,
LA.
I said New York based in the intro,
okay.
Right?
So Gary, his art, first of all, I learned about Gary. He was part of, well, I've known about Gary's work for a long time, but Gary was part of the DIA show 30 Americans.
Right.
And his art is very much about social progress through art and the importance of it. So I thought that he would be, really amazing. And these posters are about music. And they're about the techno, they're featuring techno bands, punk bands, hip hop bands, and I think about 13 to 15 of them are actual bands that are of Detroit. And probably all of the bands that are featured in the installation have been through Detroit. So for Culture Lab, you know, it's a laboratory of culture, and music, art, dance is all part of the stories.
Right. Right.
It's kind of perfect.
Right, and being in the middle of what is now the new sort of look of downtown Detroit, where we're taking spaces that had not been used for a really long time and reusing them. Obviously, that would be one of Bedrock's interests, I would think.
Exactly. Anytime we have an opportunity to instill or create a culture, we jump at the opportunity. A lot of people say why. We just simply say why not.
Yeah.
If you look at that area in its totality, you've got the Z, you have the Belt, you have a gallery, art gallery there already, installation. Earlier this year we had Lupe Fiasco there for a music event. It's just a really good vibe. It creates something that makes it a destination point. And Bedrock, we're always looking at partnering, collaborating with anybody we can. So MoCAD, Culture Lab, it all flowed for us, and we felt real comfortable doing it.
Yeah, if you're in that area a lot, I mean, you're starting to notice the appearance of more art, more physical, you know, I can see it kind of art in a lot of spaces around there. Of course, the back of the CompuWare building is the most noticeable, but if you go around to other places, you see a lot of art, and Bedrock is responsible for a lot of that.
Yes, we are, and that. Obviously, what used to be the CompuWare building is now One Campus Marshals.
Right.
You have Shepherd Ferry.
Old school, right?
Yeah, no, you're there. You're versed. You're there. You know, you're vested. But you know, you brought in Shepherd Ferry. So, anytime I think that if you look throughout history, you can go all the way back to the Renaissance. Whenever you have a lot of culture, a lot of diversity, a lot of, if you will, uniting of the minds and passion, you see the art, you see the music. It all kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So instead of doing it like every other city's always done it, Detroit's in its new stage and its rebirth almost. You know, we feel art, history, everything needs to be part of it. So we're very, like I said, we're very happy to be a part of it, and we're going to keep pushing the envelope and doing things maybe a lot of other real estate companies not necessarily would do.
Yeah, yeah.
And, we're
now,
happy
a
to
lot
do
of times people wouldn't think about, well, how does this place feel after I renovate it?
Exactly.
What am I trying to say, maybe, about this place after I renovate it? Yeah. Jane, Culture Lab is involved in lots of really different, and I always think that what you're up to is really innovative in ways that you think about how art informs other things. It's not just art for art's sake. It's often art for the sake of talking about change or progress. These things, you have lots of different projects like that, though, going on.
Yeah, well, and I try really hard with these projects to not do art for art's sake. First of all, art is universal, culture is universal.
Sure.
And I think one of the strongest, most beautiful things that's happening in Detroit is that you're finding art and gardens are expressing themselves in these neighborhoods, and it's happening just because it's the right thing to, it's happening.
Yeah.
And that's what's driving everybody together. That's the thing that everybody talks about when they talk and think about Detroit and Bedrock. It's so amazing. But it's a universal connector. It's really important. So with Culture Lab, I try very hard to find people and invite them as guests to Detroit that aren't just making art for art's sake, that they want to collaborate, that they want to be a part of the scene that's already here.
Yeah.
And that art and culture are what's rebuilding the community in a way that's meaningful in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's meaningful.
Yeah.
So.
And so this exhibit at 1301 Broadway, this is open to the public, obviously.
It's open to the public. It's free, and that's another Culture Lab thing. So I do a series of different things, but I always try to reach out to different parts of the community in different ways. So this is about music. You know, other things that I do are about gardens,
Yeah.
discussions.
I know you're
all
big
kinds
on
of
gardens.
things. Yes.
I know that you have
Yep.
lots of gardens yourself, and you're
Yeah.
really sort of encouraging of the idea of gardens, again, as that sort of common cultural space, a
Yep.
way for people to work
To
together.
communicate and to make things and to build things together and to, you know, celebrate the culture
Yeah.
that we all share.
Yeah.
So-
I want to go back to Bedrock for a second and talk about the area where this is, the block where this is, and sort of how important it is to be sort of lifting that block up. I mean, we see things changing pretty rapidly downtown, but we still have these sort of spots where we need to push and say, well, what could this be?
Exactly. The block itself is extremely unique because obviously 1301 Broadway is right there. You have Broadway, you have a lot of a mixture of the old with the new.
Right, you have old businesses that have been there for a really long time, still hanging in there, but new stuff's cropping up around.
No doubt. New things. We've got Punch Bowl Social, which was one of our first large offerings on the entertainment side, and then you also have you have stalemates. Henry the Hatter. That go back longer than me and you. We put our age together on top of everybody, and that's where they're.
Right.
And then you look at what we've done also on the other side of Library Street, and we've had a ground-up development that is the Z Garage, that in itself is an art installation. The DIA, they bring people through during the summertime for visits.
See all the murals on the walls on the different floors, right?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And the thing is, that's just our first offering, to be honest. We have a lot of other things in works and in plans, and we're just going to continue to grow, continue to create that environment where, just from a cultural standpoint, you see a lot of growth. And I think for everything that's happening in Detroit on the outside, maybe not so much, we don't even understand it ourselves, but Detroit has a significant art scene.
Sure.
And is very well respected. And music goes without saying. So we're just here to kind of push the envelope and continue to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Can
Go
I
ahead,
say
Jane.
one thing that it's really great? what I do with Culture Lab is everything I do is a collaboration also. So I don't exist without people like Bryan and everybody else in the community. And it was really, really important that Bedrock, I mean, it's been a wonderful collaboration that they would want to do this project with me, with Culture Lab, and with MoCAD also, because that's what, you know, that's the strength in what's happening in Detroit, that we're all recognizing and trying to work together.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, that's the most important piece.
What are you seeing just in the last few years in terms of, it seems like there's an acceleration of the way that art is driving the conversation about how Detroit is changing. Do you see that as well?
I think there's an acceleration only in that, well, I think, there's an acceleration because some of the projects that were started several years ago are starting to actually make sense and make a difference. And I think that's what we're all feeling. I mean, there's situations, things that are going on in the North End, things that are going on in Southwest, things that are going on in Brightmoor, and we're all starting to see the results, whether it's, you know, feeding the neighborhood, getting more kids engaged, making projects that are bigger, stronger, more visible. And the partnerships are, everybody's starting to get used to each other and starting to see that, you know, if we do this together, that it can actually, something can really
that blending
happen.
of old and new can actually create something, a third way being new.
Right, and for me, it's the most exciting part, actually, is to see that happening and to learn.
Congratulations to both of you on the installation, and thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, here's a quick look at what is coming up this week. Detroiter Lenny Sinclair will receive a commemorative monograph for being selected as this year's Kresge Eminent Artist. The free celebration of Sinclair's work takes place on Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. And on Thursday, the University of Michigan Board of Regents is going to consider the appointment of Vice Provost Robert Sellers, who was a guest on this show, as the university's first ever Chief Diversity Officer. The recommendation comes from U of M President Mark Schlissel, and it's part of a new $85 million plan to promote diversity and inclusion on campus. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.